Welcome back to the Ferris Sports Update, joined now by the color commentator for Ferris State men's basketball, Sandy Gholston. Sandy, thanks for joining me today.
Always a pleasure to be on the Sports Update.
Ferris State men's basketball just wrapped up their season, but nice postseason run for them. Another tournament title in the GLIAC tournament, hosted at home, and the most wins in program history in a single season. Really good finish for them.
Yeah, you know, it's a tough ending to the season, but really, let's celebrate the greatness that happened here. A record number of wins for the team, great run through the GLIAC regular season to win that outright, and then to run their way through the GLIAC tournament. 3 very difficult games, but nonetheless 3 wins for the Bulldogs to claim the outright GLIAC championship and then set the stage for them to go to the NCAA tournament.
Outright GLIAC championship, indeed. They won the regular season in the GLIAC. They hosted the GLIAC tournament. They took on the Michigan Tech Huskies in that semifinal, and man, it was nothing short of a dogfight. That team always comes to play.
Yeah, dogfight, the Bulldogs and the Huskies. What more can you expect? And it was really exactly what we expected. The Bulldogs and Huskies had played 2 tough games during the regular season, and we were really just a couple weeks removed from that last regular season game. And then to go into that 3rd meeting, you're kind of thinking, oh man, to beat a good team 3 times, but somehow the Bulldogs were able to do it. They were able to put together a strong performance coming off of that game against Hillsdale to be able to advance to the GLIAC championship game.
They advanced the GLIAC championship game, and it's a 1-point victory over the Ashland Eagles, who came in shooting the lights out the night before. But the Bulldogs able to get the last one, and then a scary moment at the end as they took a shot from beyond half court, almost went down, but the Bulldogs able to celebrate on their own court, cut down the nets again.
Well, it was a scary situation the game before, as you alluded to. They hit, I think, 21 threes in that game, 21 of 29 threes, I believe. That's an incredible amount of threes against the University of Findlay. And you're thinking, man, I hope they used all those threes up. And they did use quite a few of them up, but they had some other tricks in their bag. And as you alluded to, the last-second shot that just bounced right off the heel of the rim that could have been the difference between the Bulldogs not winning the GLIAC tournament championship and the fact that they did win it. So great win for the Bulldogs, but tremendous competition from Ashland.
Despite the GLIAC tournament championship win for the Bulldogs, they were probably going to be an at-large bid into the NCAA tournament, and they get in the 12th time in program history. And as we look back now, the Bulldogs taking on the Truman State Bulldogs in the first game of the NCAA tournament. We'll take a look back at some highlights now as Ferris State able to come away with a hard-fought win against this Truman State team and had to come late. And some good shot making here early by Drew Cushingberry. Yeah,
you can see Drew really stepped his game up this year and getting some all-GLIAC mention there, and you can see a great left-handed finish inside. This was a Truman team that really came in shooting the ball well. Speaking of shooting the ball well, Greg Williams right there with the shot in transition from the wing. And so great to see Greg Williams step up, and you and I were talking a little bit before, some of the guys off the bench that really stepped up. We saw a nice shot there by Cole Walker.
Another guy that turned his game on in the NCAA tournament, a guy that had struggled in the GLIAC tournament towards the end of the regular season, Pete Furlick, especially in these 2 games in the NCAA tournament, was huge for the Bulldogs. You saw him make a shot there and making a lot of plays this weekend.
Yeah, he really did, and it was great to see him step back up because he's such a key component of what the Bulldogs want to do. And when you have the amount of talent that Peter has, you're not going to keep that down for very long. I mean, good players find a way to step up and make big plays right there on cue with the big 3-pointer from the wing. So great to see him really step up his game after a rough showing there for a few games. He really stepped it back up.
Truman State led for much of the first half of this game. Actually, the first 3 quarters of this game, really, they were ahead in the ball game. The Bulldogs had to claw their way back into this one, the Ferris State Bulldogs, of course. And they had a lot of help off the bench. Again, Cole Walker from downtown, that was in his repertoire.
Yeah, he's showing some expansion of his range right there. You can see the skip pass across the court there to D'Angelo Hughes, true freshman, having a big year. You know, with Truman coming in, we knew they were a really good shooting team, and they really came out shooting the lights out early in that game and forced the Bulldogs to climb the hill. And sometimes you think a Bulldogs come in number 2 seed, you're facing a number 7 seed, but all 8 teams can play when you get to a regional tournament like that. The Bulldogs really had to step their game up.
Another 3 from Greg Williams there. We saw D'Angelo Hughes have himself a big second half against Truman State, and the Bulldogs come away with an 86-78 victory over Truman State to move on to the Midwest Regional semifinal. And the Bulldogs would take on a familiar foe, the Findlay Oilers.
Yeah, Bulldogs coming off of that strong second half performance against Truman, looking ahead to what was going to be ahead against Findlay.
Yeah, this Findlay Oiler team, a team that the Ferris State Bulldogs saw plenty of in the regular season. They lost to an overtime, in fact. It's a team that the Bulldogs have gone down to the wire with them a number of times. There's the last-second shot last year in the GLIAC tournament by Drew Cushingberry. There's an overtime game this year already, and this is a team that just matches up well against Ferris State.
Yeah, they've had quite a few matchups in the last couple of years, and some high-stakes matchups and some close battles between the two teams. And it was something that you were expecting, the same thing. We talked a little bit earlier about Michigan Tech and the Bulldogs, and we know traditionally those two teams play some tough games against each other, and that's what we saw with Findlay. Findlay, a team is a very solid basketball team, about 2 or 3 high-end players that can really carry the load for them. And so it was a tough matchup for the Bulldogs in the sense that pretty evenly matched teams. And Bulldogs, tough one for the Bulldogs is they played pretty well in the first half and then kind of cooled off a little bit in the second half.
Time now to look back at some of the highlights of this game. And speaking of played well, through the first 10 minutes of play, the Bulldogs are shooting 70% from beyond the arc as they got a number of big shots early here. One quick from Noah King. And this is a back-and-forth offensive onslaught, especially for the first 15 minutes of the ball game.
Yeah, they were really going back and forth. And you mentioned the Bulldogs red hot from outside the three-point line. Teams, of course, over the course of the season, they have been double-teaming Zach Hankins quite a bit, in some cases triple-teaming Zach. And so that's creating openings. Right here on cue, you see Drew Cushingberry on the kickout pass there. Friendly roll down there in Louisville, Kentucky for Drew.
And the Bulldogs get out to a decent lead here, but again, it's Findlay making some big-time shots, getting back in the ball game. And Ferris State, while they led for much of the first half, not the same so much in the second half after some big plays.
Yeah, we saw a great take there, finished with the left hand by Peter Furlick, our guy again, and right there a good fundamental up and under move by Kimbrough, one of their key players for Findlay, and he stepped up and had a big game. Again, a lot of good players. Stern Tucker is a good player as well, and a well-coached team, 2 very well-coached teams when you talk about the Bulldogs and the Oilers. And there's our guy again, D'Angelo Hughes with the big 3 from the wing.
At this point, the Oilers start to take over the basketball game, and defensively, what did the Oilers do so well to shut Ferris State down in the second half? Ferris State went in to halftime close to 40 points, and they only got to 63. It was a low-scoring second half. What did the Oilers change up there?
Well, I think one of the things that the Oilers do a good job of is that, you know, a lot of teams are going to double team Zach, and then what can you do afterward on that first pass and then the second pass? Can you rotate and get to the shooters? And they did a good job of really getting out, challenging the shooters, making things a little bit tougher for the Bulldogs to really get those clean looks to the basket. And, you know, we went a little bit cold in the second half as well, and that really hurt our efforts in terms of trying to get back into that game.
Nice up and under here by Zach Hankins to get the Bulldogs back within reach. Drew Cushingberry makes a big shot. This would be the last Bulldog basket of the season as the Findlay Oilers come away with a 68-63 win. And a tough way to end the season in the NCAA tournament for the Bulldogs, but really nothing to shake your head at. The best 3 years in program history as well for Ferris State men's basketball, and a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, I think the future is bright for this team, and lose one senior, a very good one, and Quentin Ruff, who's had a great impact on the team. But really excited about what this team has to come in the future. I think the things are looking bright for this team. A lot of young talent.
Sandy, thanks for joining me today.
Always a pleasure.
We'll be right back. We'll take a quick break. When we get back, we'll talk to the head coach of Ferris State Hockey, Bob Daniels.